welcome to another wacky episode of the Show. We are two geeks who talk about everything. My name is Aaron, and I'm joined by my cousin and co-host, Landon.
Good day. Good day, everyone.
What is up, man? How's life?
Good. I've been traveling. I've been at trade shows where I walk around and meet really cool people that make really cool things and try to tell them that they should use my things to sell their things.
How does that work for you?
Good. Good. It's fun. Walking and talking, man. But it
Yeah,
is
that's two
exhausting.
things I don't like to do. I don't like to walk or talk.
I think I logged I think I logged about 76 hours this past week,
When
you
when you
know.
do those trade shows, do you count your steps? Like, do you have a step counter on your phone or on like your? Do you have a watch that
No,
counts?
no, I stopped doing the Fitbit. I had it, but for the large majority of my life and time, the Fitbit is not happy with me. Or the Apple Watch. It's almost like it's condescending. It's not really saying it, but it's implying it. You know what I mean? Just
Yeah,
like
my
little
my
judge.
phone constantly tells me, "Hey, you haven't quite finished that ring yet. You want
Yeah.
to complete that?"
It's like
Dude,
time to
stop
get
judging
up.
me.
Time to get up. And I'm like, time to shut your face. You
Right.
know?
Sitting is the new smoking, and I'm okay with that.
I have a new
All right.
watch that my wife got me for my birthday, for Christmas. And I like this watch is just a watch. It's like, good, do your job. You're doing
Yeah,
it well.
that's all I need. I just need a timepiece. That's it.
That's
Let's
all
just
I
be
need.
simple again. Let's pretend like it's the '80s. All right.
Yeah.
Give me an
Boom.
Indiglo thing and let's do it.
Plus, I should also clarify that I also have friends who work out for me, so I don't have to.
That's good.
I don't do that.
Live vicariously through others. That's
I do.
good.
That's right.
Today, we are diving into the 1994 comedy Greedy, directed by
Hmm.
Jonathan Lynn. This movie has an impressive ensemble cast, including Michael J. Fox, Kirk Douglas, Nancy Travis, and Phil Hartman, among many, many others. Landon, you have claimed that this is your favorite movie.
It
So
is.
I would like to hear your initial thoughts.
Well, I'm trying to think of when we first saw this movie because I don't know that we watched it together, did we, for the first time that I saw it? I don't think
No,
so.
I can't
Man, I
remember, but somehow this movie became very important to our adolescence.
it
And we
did.
watched it many times and quoted it repeatedly.
Yes, hilarious. So it's got a great cast. First of all, you've got, Michael J. Fox in it. You've got Kirk Douglas. Well, you're going to go through all the people who are in it, but it's got a lot of great, funny people, especially Phil Hartman. And all of these people coming together in one setting and the banter off of one another. It is one of the most quotable movies. That and say Liar Liar, for example. I mean, just an extremely quotable movie. I'm pretty sure that you and I could literally like go start to finish without pause and quote the entire
Between the
movie.
two of us, I'm sure we could do it. Yeah.
We've gotten through a good, at least 15-20 minutes of dialogue. We've been around the Christmas table, if I recall. I mean, gravy. Mm,
Yeah,
so good.
I don't know when the first time I watched this was. I don't remember if it was by myself or if it was with you. It may very well have been with you.
We could have been
It's
folding
funny.
cardboard corners. Don't
It
we have folding cardboard corners?
may very well have been. Yeah, sitting in your basement. Yeah. Man, the it's so funny. Like you said, it's very quotable. Um, and have no problem quoting it often, not just with you, but just in random conversation, and people don't understand what I'm talking about. But it's funny going back and watching it as an adult now. I wonder if the part of the reason we thought it was so funny was because of all the swearing in the movie. Because there is a lot of pretty bad language when it comes down to it. I mean, it's not like f bombs all over. It's not a Scorsese movie or anything like that.
Right.
But there is a lot of cussing, and so I wonder if that kind of tickled us as two young conservative teenagers. But yeah, it's very quotable. It's funny when it was released. Yeah, excuse me. I was doing some research on it, before we got
Yeah.
on here. When it was initially released, it was promoted pretty heavily, but it didn't really make much of a splash at the box office. And critically,
Crazy.
it is not. It's got a rotten score on Rotten Tomatoes. Roger Ebert, let me quote this. He said, because I think the quote's actually kind of funny. The movie has a promising first act and then makes the mistake of taking its silly story seriously with dreadful results. The last two-thirds of this movie plays out like a sitcom without the laugh track or the laughs. That's hurtful. That's a little hurtful. I mean, can you
Ebert,
just not say thumbs down and be done with it?
Ebert, that's just rude. Just rude. Mm.
It's pretty funny. I mean, but I mean, he's not entirely wrong. It is a lot like a sitcom because think about most of the actors that are in this movie, other than you've got Hollywood legend Kirk Douglas and Michael J. Fox is at this point has become a pretty bankable box office star. Um, but for the most part, the cast is you think about them, they're mostly TV actors, right?
Here's the thing. Yes, that's true. But think about the movie Tommy Boy. Think about how Tommy Boy starts off and it's just very like it is very silly. It's got a serious thing that happens at the beginning. But I mean, really, the majority of the movie is very much it's music, tunes, road rock, they're bantering back and forth. And then as the end comes around, you're wrapping it up with a moral. And this happened. This is the way 90s movies went. You had a funny thing, and I mean, and you'd round it out in the end. I don't feel like it was forced. Cable Guy was forced down my throat, trying to bring that to a serious. That was one that was silly and then took a really sharp turn into being serious and not a funny way.
Yeah,
And so, like, that's when what like his perspective would have been what I would have said a Cable Guy, not greedy. Must have been having a bad day.
maybe he had bad popcorn at that viewing.
Yeah.
So the basic premise follows this wealthy, cranky old man named Joe McTeague. And he's got these greedy relatives who are all trying to get on his good side so they can inherit his fortune when he passes away. That seems like a perfect setup for some wacky comedy to me. Tell the truth, Landon. Is the plot engaging or is it too predictable?
Well, okay. All right. It's pretty predictable. I mean, it well, I would say the ending was surprising for me because
Yeah,
there is
there's a pretty good twist at the
pretty
end.
good
Yeah,
twist at the end. But I felt like, how the characters were going to react. You were kind of leading up to know that Michael J. Fox was going to like become infected a little bit, and start to be that way. You knew Nancy Travis was kind of the moral authority, of the movie. I mean, so yeah, but plenty, and all the family members acted exactly, except for Frank. He's always been sorry. All right, sorry. I said I wouldn't. I said I wouldn't start quoting. I can't help it. But seriously, I feel like it was predictable. What about you?
um, yeah, it's predictable. I mean, you've got. I mean, obviously the movie is titled Greedy, so I mean to think that you're not going to go into this movie and find uh that most of these people are just ridiculous caricatures of human beings who are nothing but butt kissing jerks who only want money. They don't really care about Uncle Joe. They just care about his money. He's a millionaire and they want to get their piece when he dies. So yeah, I feel like it's a trope that's probably been done. Whether I don't think this is the first time it was done on film. I'm sure it's been done over and
No.
over again, and
Yeah.
it not just in on film, but in literature and on the
Right.
stage. This is the kind of thing that it makes for a good story. You have this old eccentric person who's got millions of dollars or whatever, and they've got no heir to inherit it, and so you've got people who come around sucking around for the money and trying to get it. So yeah, it's a classic. So what if it's a little predictable?
Yeah. I
It's
mean,
still very entertaining.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it can be predictable. That's all right. It's all right so long as it makes you laugh. The true test is the fact that you can watch this movie, or you can. It's like watching Elf. It's just funny. It's just funny to watch some people do certain things over and over again, and seeing Phil Hartman be Phil Hartman's character and being angry. he- He's so. I'm sorry, it just rolls through my
Just
head.
just Phil Hartman being Phil Hartman is
Oh, who would he be today if he had lived? I mean, my
seriously.
gracious, what would comedy be?
Oh, I hope he wouldn't have been one of those comedians who decided, you know what, I'm going to start doing serious roles.
Yeah, yeah,
No, Phil Hartman, you're stuck doing Lionel Hutz and Troy McClure and these characters like you've gotten greedy.
Oh.
So I want to say one of the most memorable parts of the movie for me is Michael J. Fox's performance.
Hmm.
Um, he always brings like this energy and charisma to his roles, and this is even after a couple of years he had already been diagnosed with Parkinson's disease.
Right. I
Of
don't
course,
think
it
I knew
wasn't
that.
public. It wasn't public yet at this point,
Right.
but he knew and he was struggling with it already. How do you think he did playing Danny, the long lost nephew brought back into the fold?
No, that was good. It's really hard when you have these certain movies that just kind of stand out as to who he is, whether or the show, like Family Ties or and Back to the Future. Like you just see that person that way. I thought it was pretty impressive how he was able to not be that person. I didn't see him in any semblance to either character at
Yeah,
all.
yeah.
And
No,
so
there was no way he was not a Marty McFly in this one. He was a completely different. He was very sarcastic, very kind of acerbic, I guess would be the right word.
he had pretty much spent you saw him as someone who was struggling. You saw that he had struggles with the money comparison of what Nancy Travis did with her career and her money. They set that up well. And then it's just, he makes this transition fairly well, I think, of going from a person who's like, I've got standards, they're not going to be like them. And then
Yeah,
he becomes that little by little. Of course, that's also playing off the amazing Kirk Douglas, you know what I mean, who did his part very well. And he just really had to just sit down and be himself. I mean, I mean, I guess I would say he had the easiest role because everything gravitated around him. And I don't know him or I've seen his interviews, but I would just imagine that is exactly how Kirk Douglas is real life. You
yeah. He's
know?
just this cranky old guy.
Yeah. You
This was
look
actually
thrilled.
this was actually his last big role before he had a pretty massive stroke in 1996 that changed anything. Like I know he did some other things
Yeah.
post, after he had his stroke.
We did that
Um,
movie with his son and his grandson. You
yeah,
know,
that's right.
I think that wasn't that his last movie. I think that I can't remember what it was called,
It
but
may have been. But yeah, as Uncle Joe, like he did a great job as this, manipulative kind of, cantankerous old man who he's, at the end of the day, he's pulling some pretty shady stuff on his family.
yeah,
And most of them deserve it, yeah.
yeah,
But there's you've got Michael J. Fox, or Danny, this character coming in after all these years apart, and he has spent so much time away from his family because, as part of the story, his father saw the greed that was going on within the family and decided
right,
to remove their little
really,
branch of the family tree
right,
and not be a part of it because they could have been sucked in very easily, which is what happens when Danny returns. He is very easily sucked back into that world
right,
where, it's he's got to have it, even though, like, at the very beginning we see he has his morals, he has his standards. He makes it known that money is a struggle for him, and that, like,
yeah,
he's got an investment opportunity, he doesn't have the money for it, and he mentions it to Uncle Joe, and Joe says he'll give it to him, but he says he's only going to give it to him if he goes and tells his father that he came to Joe asking for money, and that he
yeah.
needs what Joe has more than he needs what his dad has, and that's really messed up.
Well, I think it was a test actually. I still think it was a
Was
test.
was
It's not that he really wanted him to do that. I think it's interesting though. There are some things that are not mistakes, but like, you know, were corny or cheesy. Like when Michael J. Fox has the actor pretend to be his father, and he looks just nothing like the other actor at all in any way, shape, or form. He looks like his actual dad. I'm like, yeah, you really could have done better with that. Now it
Yeah,
could have been confusing to the audience, and I probably can see how someone who is doing a casting directing or like the director's like, yeah, we can't make them too similar, but I'm still just like, y'all, come on. I mean, it doesn't matter if it's been like 20 years or 30 years or whatever. Still.
yeah, you know what people look like.
Yeah, I mean, They look completely different.
Yeah.
They talked completely different. I would have gotten like, Riker from with the beard from Next Generation before I would have gotten somebody else.
It looked kind of like Kenny Rogers to me.
He did.
Let's talk about the movie's director, Jonathan Lynn, for a minute. This is the same guy who directed Clue back in 1985. Later, he would bring us the dark comedy The Whole Nine Yards, which is one of my personal favorites.
Yeah.
Did you realize he also plays the butler Douglas in this movie?
No,
You didn't
really?
know that? All these
No.
years, the director is Douglas the butler. Yeah,
He can go dance the Holy Gully for all I care.
that's right.
Wow. That's cool.
He was also the he'd also worked with Nancy Travis before. Did you ever see Three Men and a Little Lady?
Of course, a requirement in our household.
He is the minister who's supposed to
Oh, that's
marry
right. That's right.
her and the douchebag that she was supposed to marry. Yeah.
Right, right, right.
So he's
Wow.
had
And
a
I
long
didn't know
career.
he directed Clue and the whole nine yards. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Wow. It
he's
makes
got a
sense.
pretty good rerepertoire there.
I wonder if
Check
he's
out
still
some of his other
alive.
movies.
He was just kind of
I think
older.
he is. I think he is.
Yeah.
But he's getting up there, I'm sure. So while Greedy didn't get amazing reviews, we already covered that. It has seemed to stick around in pop culture a bit. So like the over the top greedy relatives become kind of a trope, like we've said before. It's probably been referenced and parodied. Um, the wacky ensemble cast is what really makes it memorable on this. So do you think that Greedy deserves more appreciation than it got when it was originally released?
Oh, 100%. 100%. I am surprised though at how many people do not know about this movie.
Oh
Like
yeah, it flies right under the radar.
it really does. And I even bring it like I'll bring it up to people and they're just like, no, I've never seen that. And I'm like, Phil Hartman. I'm like, what? What? I just want to have like a showing. Like I want to bring and gather all the people I know and be like, you have missed something. Not only have you missed something in our culture, but you've missed a piece of me. And this might explain things for you as to why I make the type of jokes that I do. This movie will do it, you know? Oh,
I'm picturing like a inside the actor studio kind of moment with the guy like being in 1994. A film was released that was so impressive. There is not a word to describe it. And I'm forced to make one up, and I will do so right now. Scrumtrelescent. Greedy is a scrumtrelescent movie.
I don't think you're doing Lipton. I think you're actually doing Will Ferrell.
Yeah. It's just that's how it goes. Like I don't actually do a Harry Carey impression. I do Will Ferrell as Harry Carey. Right. So that's given us a lot to dig into about this zany inheritance comedy. But now it's time to get into the nitty gritty. Release the hounds, release the kraken, if you will. What are some of your favorite lines and favorite scenes? Remember, we only have about 10 more minutes left in this podcast.
I like presents, especially from people who love me.
Who'd that be?
That's a good one. That's a good one. I and what about you? Throw one out there.
Okay. So many, so many.
I think I know which one
Um,
you're gonna do.
you the whole scene where we first meet the entire family
Yeah.
and they're all sitting around the table. That entire scene is just comedic gold, where they're going back and forth and trying to expose each other for all the horrible things that they've done in the past few months. And like everybody's got private investigators checking each other out. It's like this constant, this bombardment of bad news and
Hold on,
like
hold on 1 second. Hold on 1 second before you say anything. Okay, so here's what I'm gonna do. I'm writing down the thing that I think you're gonna say because it's the thing that comes to mind whenever I think about this movie that you would say. All right, now go ahead, say it.
I can't say it. If I'm thinking what if you're thinking what I'm thinking, that didn't make any sense. There's a word that I can't say anymore that is considered inappropriate to you.
Start it and don't go that far.
Yeah. You've got Phil Hartman's teenage son sitting at the big kids table, right, with the rest of the adults.
Oh yeah.
And this is how the dinner scene begins. Everyone's sitting quietly having dinner, and then Dennis, the teenage son, starts going.
Aaron's making fart sounds, by the way, since the Zoom
Oh
will not
yeah,
allow us to pick
Zoom
up sounds.
takes that out. He starts making fart noises with his mouth, right? Which is funny in itself to a teenage kid because farts are always funny.
But it's just loud, it's just loud at the table, and everybody's just looking over, right?
So Phil Hartman, what was his character's name? Help me out. Why did I forget
Frank.
that? Frank. Thank you, Frank.
Frank's
Frank
always been a
Frank looks over at his obnoxious teenage son and says, Dennis, why don't you go sit at the kids' table? And then Dennis,
Ladies and
straight
gentlemen, I
face,
just showed on the screen the very words that my cousin just said. Boom.
why don't you go sit at the kids' table? And then
Make
Dennis, straight face, looks at his dad and says, make me. Frank just kind of smiles and nods and then gets up and grabs the kid and forces him back into
And
the
he's
kids
a
table.
big kid. He's
He
not
is a
like a
big
small
kid.
kid. He is like a big kid. And he just grabs him and throws him over at the kids' table. And it like,
Wait, one of the little girls at the kids table, did you realize is Kirsten Dunst?
oh, yeah, I did notice that the last time I watched it. I watched it
Yeah.
before Christmas. Yeah, yeah, I did. That was crazy. But yes, he throws him over the table and he says, we won't do the full line. I'll paraphrase, but he says, "What's the matter with you? Are you crazy or stupid?" But he says something else. And then Dennis says, "Not according to the tests." And then he does another fart
It's a
sound.
fart noise
Phil Hartman
again.
grabs him again and knocks all over the milk all over the table. And then he
I
walks
told
over
Uncle Joe he didn't want you to get sick.
to Ed. Girls knocked
One
over
of your
some
girls knocked over some milk.
milk. I love how each of them have like different they have their own little worlds. Like obviously Nora and what's the dad's name? What's the what's his name? Ed Begley.
Carl.
Carl. Nora and Carl have their own perfect family story, 4 kids. Ed and the sister, what's her name? Not not Glenn, this Glenn and Muriel. You have Ed and whatever his
Lee
wife's name
Camp's
is.
character, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So they have like their kids and they have all girls, and it's just like there's nobody to pass along the line, whereas Carl and his wife have 2 boys. So it's just like
And they're both named Joe.
both the kids are little Joe, and
And
little
another
Josiah
little
on
Joe in
the
the
way.
oven.
Joe- oh
She's
man.
pregnant with their third son.
One of
Uh,
my favorite scenes when they meet each other because they think that he's died and they come up and the sister comes up. She's like, "Did he?" They're like, "Yes," and he left everything to you, sis. He's like, "No, it was the doctor." and then and then they talked about he's like, we got Joe and Joe. She's like, "Yeah, that's right. We weren't, cynical and cold-blooded enough to take Ed's sperm and put it in centrifuge and spin around all the X's and Y's. There's a line we won't sing to. Jolene, Josette, come along, girls." I love that line. It's so good.
that whole beginning, like seriously, with the family together and then going back and forth, that like the whole thing is just nuts. And then you introduce Olivia Dabo's character,
Oh my gosh.
Molly.
Who from Wonder Years?
Yeah, yeah, the older
Oh,
sister from Wonder Years.
no.
Who knew
Awesome.
she was like a hottie?
She was a
Um,
hottie.
but she
Okay.
comes in there, and it turns out she is some random chick that he hired as a nurse. She's not a nurse. She's no nurse.
She came here
Uh,
delivering the pizza.
but now, of course, this is why Danny is reintroduced to the family because the family's nervous now
Yeah,
because
that's
you've got
correct.
this young, beautiful girl living in the house who they assume is having sex with the old man
Yeah.
and is going
And
to get
get
all
all the
of the
money.
money because she made him very happy in the end. I mean, that's how I'd want to go, but who am I? Uh,
Every
you
man.
know, that's it's just like it's it's like the catalyst that brings Danny back into the fold. And one of the other things, another line that I really love, I can't say it because it involves, yes, another curse word, but when they send the private investigator to go like entice Danny into coming back, he has had a very bad day. Okay, he's a professional bowler, and he almost makes it to the live telecast, but then he screws up at the end.
Oh, what a
And so
horrible scene. What a
he,
horrible, horrible, awful scene when he chokes on that.
it really
Oh,
is.
it's really
He's drunk and having an argument with Nancy Travis, his girlfriend. And in the midst of that, he, he throws a bowling ball
out the
out the
window.
hotel window, and they're up on like the fourth or fifth story. And the ball lands on the hood of the private investigator's car, right?
Right.
And Nancy Travis looks out the window and says, "Get a car. You could
You
have
could have
killed
killed
somebody."
someone. The way I bowl. That was good. I love
Private
where she
investigator
comes
knocks
in.
on the door. She goes, he goes, "Who are you?" And she's asking, "Daniel McTeague." He goes, "No way, that's my name too."
He says, "You're a private detective? Good. Help me find my pants." Because he was naked.
Yeah. Yeah. It's oh my gosh, there's just so many good lines
Oh my
to this
God.
movie. We need to wrap it up. Do you have give me one more. Give me one more good one from later on in the movie. We've been sticking to the first half here with these lines.
You know, what's the one thing um when they're all the couple or the couples, the family is all together in that room and like they go back to whoever's house it is and they're all sitting there talking and they're trying to deliberate, about what we're going to do and that's when they bring up the idea of Daniel and trying to get him to come. And they're all talking and there's a great little banter that happens. And one of the lines is Phil Hartman says to his wife, "Oh, Tina, go lay down," and
Lies
his
down on the
wife.
carpet.
And then later on, the conversation's still rolling, and she's just laying on the carpet.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
That's
it's not even something like you would notice unless you're like you just randomly paying attention to the background because she doesn't actively go lay down somewhere.
no,
You
she
just
just lays down on the floor where he
like a couple of cut scenes later, you like you said, the conversation's still going, and then there she is on the floor, flat on her back, right where she had been standing.
oh man, there's so that's so funny. Now that whole scene was hilarious. There's a lot of funny lines in that, but they have cuss words, so I
I do
can't
like the
say 'em.
in that very scene that you're talking about, thing that the character Ed brings up. He said they're very seriously talking, and he says that Uncle Joe is the devil. And he draws a line in the sand, and you think, well, that's not too far. I'll cross that line, and then he draws another line, and another, and before you know it, you look back and you can't see where you started. And he's like, well, let's just all agree to stop now.
Right.
And they're like, no,
Yeah.
come
Yeah.
too far. This is like
No one could walk away from that money. We're just
exactly.
that's what Glenn says. Um, but that's the thing is they
Daniel
just
did.
yeah, Daniel did. But the movie finishes out
They
without
were
giving
arguing
away.
about grapes.
Yeah, graves. Those migrant workers were repressed and graves a chance on the run road to screw themselves in Mason Date's window, and Daniel let them have it. Just the way Phil Hartman talks. All right, so I don't think we should. There's not enough people in the world who've seen this movie, so I'm not going to ruin how the movie turns out. I don't think we should do that. But I will say that it does have a really cool twist in the end, and it has a good
Colorful
wholesome
twist in the
ending.
end.
Yeah, that's true. It has a very wholesome ending that makes you smile and feel good about things and what's really important.
Yeah,
So
I agree.
worth
Um,
seeing. I would encourage anyone to see it. And heck, if you're just wondering, why, Aaron or I act the way that we do, this is a good movie. because our humor is derived from this somewhat banter of humor. So yeah.
Good indicator, yeah. Don't listen to Roger Ebert. Listen to us.
Yeah.
Uh,
Forget about Ebert, loser.
yeah. Hey, dude,
Dare you?
too soon. Too soon. All right, that's about all the time we have for today. This has been a fun overload of comedy and family dysfunction. We always enjoy geeking out with our listeners about these classic movies. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon to be notified about new episodes of the Show. And hey, don't be afraid to share your own thoughts about this or any other topic in the comments. We want to hear from you. We want you to be part of our conversation. Landon, anything else before we go?
No, just enjoy and please, please, please go see the movie Greedy. Watch it. You could stream it or grab it or buy it or rent it or something. I don't know where, but
It's
get it
available somewhere on streaming.
somewhere. It all is somehow.
Gotta be, gotta be. All right. Until next time, have a great whatever it is, wherever you are.